Hello everybody, Weber. Half boy, half spider. One of the most standout and iconic characters quite possibly in the entirety of Don't Starve. We've got a bunch of humans, a robot, a fish, and a goat, but this weird half spider, half human hybrid always stood out to me the most. Not how they work, since the Constant is home to even weirder combination life forms, but how their consciousness works, their identity, and who exactly Weber is. Not simply the boy they once were, but the person they are now. Did two bodies and minds simply become one, or are both minds still cooperating? Do you ever wonder why Weber would seemingly randomly refer to themselves as either the singular I or the plural we, and sometimes the ever elusive him? Well, in today's video, I'm going to tell you that there's nothing random about it. A quick once-over of Weber's lore in case you forgot. Weber was simply a human child who loved doing things us fellow humans did when we were younger, but his dad was always so busy with his work and could seldom afford time to spend with his child. So the boy, frustrated at how his dad spends more time in his study than with him, broke into his study one night to sabotage his research. Except his research was a gigantic spider from the Constant, the world of Don't Starve. Some weird unexplainable magic occurred that we still don't have explained, and the boy and the spider somehow fused into one. Weber, now terrified at his new form, was forced out of his own house and home by his very parents, until we can only assume a certain sharply chinned man offered him a deal to move to a world where he would be better appreciated. Fast forward to actually playing the game in Don't Starve Reign of Giants, you can find Weber's skull by killing spiders, which could then be placed in a dug-up grave in order to revive Weber once more, and unlock him as a playable character. It's very easy to simply pass off Weber as what is essentially a small child that got eaten by a big spider and now simply exists inside the spider. But that's really not the case. Weber is equal parts spider and equal parts human in his current form. And that's why today we're going to be talking about the dichotomy of the human part of Weber and the spider part of Weber. How both of their personalities still exist in their compound vessel, and how one simply isn't too dominant over the other. Now you'd think that because Weber talks and acts like a little boy, that the boy is all there is to them. But it's not like the spider half of them could talk, since spiders typically don't talk. Just because Weber doesn't talk about growling at the sun or walking around their web at dusk doesn't mean the spider part of Weber doesn't have a say or even a voice in their body. We know this because there are a ton of quotes where the voice of the child, who we assume is the one that speaks, refers to the other half, the spider half. You probably noticed this a lot during gameplay, where Weber would sometimes say our or us when referring to themselves, but other times say my or I. This isn't a case of a child not knowing the differences between singular and plural pronouns, but is to show us the child is either referring to the child part of the psyche, or their other half, possibly combined personality. A good example of this is the quote for a razor, where they mention that they watched their father use one, or the quote for the nightmare light that mentions how it's not their kind of nightlight. This is obviously the child speaking here and referring to their memories, since spiders wouldn't have memories about their dad shaving with razor blades or using nightlights to help sleep. Conversely, we have countless examples of quotes where they refer to themselves, plural, because they are two different things sharing the same body, like a lot of the quotes for clothing items and such. Lots of we and ours and very few me's and my's. But there also exist quotes where who is talking, which we can only assume is the boy, refers to the spider half of their situation as a completely different persona. They're rare, but they do exist. The first one is for the Joy of Volcanology, a Wickerbottom exclusive book from Shipwrecked that causes little mini volcano eruptions to occur. Weber's quote for this book is, "I'm not a good reader, but he is." This implies one of two things. Well, firstly it confirms the spider part of Weber is also a he, but the first of which is that Weber, the boy, the child, is not a good reader, but the spider part of him somehow is. Quote unquote, I, the boy, am not good at reading, but he, the spider, is. Which would be incredibly confusing because that implies the Don't Starve spiders can read better than a child. The other interpretation of this quote is the exact opposite. where it's instead said from the perspective of the spider, and that the spider is saying that the boy is the better reader, and that they are not. This is tricky, because we either have to accept the fact that the spider half of Weber is actually a good reader, or is capable of speech, and that a lot of Weber's quotes could be a 50-50 toss-up on if it's the child saying it or the spider saying it. This opens a whole new can of worms. I personally feel it's the former in this situation, and that the boy is the only one capable of speech. After looking through Weber's quotes for the better part of several days, I find it very difficult to believe that any of these could be said through the perspective of a wild arachnid. Last I checked, spiders didn't ever have toy boxes. But then again, in the same breath, there are a lot of quotes that sound nothing like something a childish child would say, like the quotes for lumpy evergreens or flint, but maybe that's just a case of a kid wanting to sound cool and adult-like. Or the spider is having an influence over their mannerisms, who knows? There are also more quotes where one half refers to the other, such as the quote for the empty elixir, which is from Don't Starve Together's Hallowed Nights event, which is, I kinda wanna drink what's left, but he won't let me. Who he in this instance is never explicitly stated, but despite how some quotes do refer to other survivors, I don't think this is one of them. I think this is a case of the spider half telling the boy half that no, you're not allowed to drink the mysterious potion. Or again, it could be the other way around and the boy's psyche is telling the spider that he cannot do that. It all depends on if the spider can talk at all. But if it isn't the case, the spider half of Weber is a good reader who also acts as a better influence over the child half, which I find very amusing. Another quote that could refer to the he being the spider of the two are for the music discs, DR Style and Creepy Forest, where the quotes are, it's his favourite song. Not my favourite song or our favourite song, but his favourite song. This to me really sells the whole point of the child being the vocal one, whilst the spider cascades his own thoughts throughout inside their shared mind. The child half is very quick to talk about my childhood and my favourite colours, but still has quotes referring to his favourite music. The more I talk about the spider half, the more it seems like a very distinguished gentleman. There is, however, what I like to call the smoking gun quote for the boy being the one that talks, and that is the quote for charcoal. They say that charcoal is hard and black, like my better half. There's that singular my again, and what else could they be referring to except for the hard black carapace that makes up the spiders of the constant, his quote-unquote better half. There are more quotes like this, but we'll get to them in a little bit. But this all pretty much confirms that both minds still share the same body. It's not a child talking exclusively inside a spider's mouth, but a new compound life form. Unless, both halves are able to communicate vocally and it's never interpreted in-game. There is also a conversation here to be had about DID, dissociative identity disorders, but I am grossly not the right person to be talking about such a topic and subject, as I am woefully undereducated about said topic. My only understanding about this is like Diavolo and Doppio from Part 5. This ain't my field of study, I'm afraid. Weber could simply be two brains somehow existing in the same body side by side. Their biology could literally be two bodies just smushed together in one carapace. Or they could have their minds and their consciousness merged into one brain. We simply do not have enough information to draw a solid conclusion. Wait, hang on a minute, do spiders actually have brains? Hang on, what do they even look like? Kind of. To be honest, I could kind of see Weber's body having both a human brain and this weird thing rattling around inside of it. Anyway, there also exists a few quotes of the two halves discussing and agreeing on things together, such as how they say, we agree that flowers are nice. Did they, have a sit-down discussion on how flowers are nice? But it functions as another quote that, yet again, tells us that both halves ain't the same thing as talking. Possibly, at least. Gotta live with the assumption that the spider half of Weber knows how to read and not drink funny liquids and listen to tense classical music. But this quote confirms that both halves are able to communicate to each other, either vocally off camera or telepathically between two brains, or the exact same brain that has two minds inside of it. It's very, very confusing, I know. One thing the pair struggle to agree on at times is food. Now, whilst Weber as a character is okay with eating monster food, the vocal half makes it very clear that they would rather not be eating monster meat. whereas typically spiders wolf down any meat that they find, be it monster or not. You would think if the spider was the vocal one here, they'd have something else to say about it than what they do here. But this is only the case for Don't Starve single player. In Together, Weber is actually a lot more vocally confident about eating monster meat. Was this a change for consistency purposes to not confuse new players, or a moment of character development where the boy becomes more tolerant of evil purple meat by the time the sequel arrives, or even the ever so dreaded it's the spider saying it, not the boy? You decide. But they do have some food that one half prefers that the other half doesn't, like fish sticks for example, which is seemingly a favourite, but only for the boy half. On the flip side, you have the figgy frog witch, which is remarked as something that they both like, which confirms that they still have their own tastes and preferences even as this new compounded form. But we need to keep in mind also that a lot of the we quotes refer to juvenile things such as playing with toys, pranking their friends, and even doing homework. We could do our homework, not I could do my homework. Hang on a minute, this is probably implying that Wickerbottom is giving the two homework, never mind. But the point still stands. The spider may seem like the more mature half of Weber with its own tastes and preferences, but it is included in their juvenile R situations. So this opens up a whole new conversation of how old is the other half of Weber. They may act mature with their love for music and not drinking funny liquids, but they do seem to be included in the silly pranks that they want to play on the other survivors. But Clay are incredibly consistent in the disparity between the boy and the spider. Anytime Weber refers to his mother, it's always singular, since the mother isn't the mother of the spider half, it's only the mother of the boy half. The only instance Weber refers to their mother as ours is the quote for the sewing kit. But I like to think that R in this instance refers to the boy and his family, not the boy and the spider, because it would be very weird if the boy's mother was doing sewing for this gigantic spider that they kept in their laboratory. And since we never hear any quotes about the spider's family or anything, it's a safe conclusion that yet again, this is more evidence that the boy is the one that is vocal and is the only one able to talk. Wait, hang on a minute, what is Weber's quote for the Spider Queen again? Never mind, it still could go either way. But I still feel it's the former, and how despite the spider half having some kind of influence, it's the boy, the one who is talking, who has the final say and even the most mental fortitude in most matters. But that doesn't mean Weber is exclusively a boy stuck inside a spider's body, and is instead a whole lot more complicated than just that. Two minds, two personalities, taking one new form, with the spider being mostly with what's on the outside, and the boy being mostly what's on the inside, but never one side without a little bit of the other. That was a ramble and a half, wasn't it? I hope you all enjoyed this little adventure through the mind of one of my favourite characters in not only Don't Starve, but a lot of games. We didn't find any definitive answers on how Weber works, but that's okay. Not everything needs to be explicitly explained, just further iterated on. Means everything is both totally right and completely wrong at the same time. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have another survivor you want me to pick apart, then drop it down below in the comments. This was a topic I wanted to talk about for a very long time, so I'm glad I was able to finally put it to a video, no matter how long and rambly it may have been. But now I need to have a rest. Cheers for watching everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.